Good morning, and welcome to the PulsePoint Community Launch Event for Anne Arundel County. I'm Dave Jackson, the project manager for PulsePoint Leadership Anne Arundel class. PulsePoint is an app that employs everyday citizens to provide life-saving assistance to victims of cardiac arrest, and users subscribe only if they are trained in CPR and willing to assist in case of emergency. PulsePoint provides an alert that CPR is needed when a subscriber is in the vicinity of a medical emergency and is sent to this at the same time as first responders are dispatched. PulsePoint also directs users of the location of the closest public AED. I'm joined by my teammates Barb Cook, Mike Cox, Daryl Hagner, Jenny Joyne, Matt Kelly, Michelle Lacey, Doug Rothal, and John Wardell, and I think about half of them are here. 3 years ago, this team, with a background in fire, police, Red Cross, and construction and defense, came together with an idea of bringing an exciting app to Anne Arundel County that could save lives. It took a lot longer than we had ever anticipated, but that vision is a reality. Would the Leadership Anne Arundel PulsePoint team stand and be recognized? Michelle, Mike, please. Due to the generosity of Anne Arundel Medical Center, the PulsePoint app was implemented and will be operated at zero expense to the taxpayers of Anne Arundel County for the next 3 years. Please join me on behalf of Leadership Anne Arundel and the county in thanking Tori Bayless, President and CEO, and Dr. Jerry Siegel, Medical Director of Cardiovascular Services, for their support to PulsePoint. I'd also like to thank the Leadership Anne Arundel Executive Director Eric Erdstrom for providing his support over the years. I don't think either of us realized in 2015 how long it would take to bring such an important project to the county, but we finally succeeded. Thank you, Eric, for developing future county leaders, and through Leadership Anne Arundel, would you please stand, and, as well as the board and other Leadership Anne Arundel executives. PulsePoint in Anne Arundel County would not have happened without the technical expertise and dedicated efforts by Anne Arundel County Information Technology Office, led by Rick Napolitano and executed by Senior Program Manager Emily Meadows, as well as Anne Arundel County Fire Department Deputy Chief Tim Michaels. 3 years of hard work updating Anne Arundel County's computer-aided dispatch backbone allowed for PulsePoint to happen. Please stand so you can be recognized. Thanks, Emily. Our county executive, Mr. Steve Shue, would like to provide a few remarks. A Leadership Anne Arundel graduate and supporter, without Steve's leadership, our county would not have had computer-aided dispatch system nor a PulsePoint. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this exciting event. I want to begin by thanking Anne Arundel Medical Center, Tori Bayless and her team for hosting us here this morning. We appreciate all the great work that this institution does throughout the region. And I also want to shout out our men and women in white who also work very hard throughout the year to protect our families and our properties. It's no surprise that we're here because of a Leadership Anne Arundel project. This organization has been the premier leadership training and networking organization in Anne Arundel County since 1993. So it's been around a long time. And this organization has helped train leaders in every imaginable field, from business to the nonprofit community to the government to you name it, including yours truly, class of 2005. And the organization, as you know, is dedicated to a very important principle that real leaders, true leaders, have an obligation to work together for the betterment of the community. This is a legacy and a concept that comes through loud and clear with projects like PulsePoint. It's, as the gentleman just said, a mobile app that trains people, bystanders, to be able to come to help those suffering from a sudden cardiac event. So PulsePoint It gets activated by local public safety communications center simultaneously with the dispatch of local fire and EMS resources. This project, this product and service will help people and reduce collapse to CPR times, which is so critical. Time's everything in these emergencies, as we know. So the extent to which we can compress CPR to collapse times and collapsed to defibrillator times so people can get the jolts that they need will save people's lives. So I want to commend the team for the work that they did to put this project together. It's very cool, very creative. And by the way, they graduated 3 years ago. So they're no longer on the Leadership Anne Arundel clock. They're doing this, on their own time because they're dedicated, because they care. But that's what Leadership Anne Arundel is all about. And so I look forward to seeing how many lives this app will save. Thank you again for being here this morning.
Morning, everybody. I'm Jerry Siegel. I'm the Director of the Cardiovascular Services here at Anne Arundel Medical Center. And the first thing I really want to do is I want to thank Leadership Anne Arundel, basically, and the local fire department, local EMS, and also the executive's office for all of the work that was required to get this program going within our community. And I thought I'd give you a little bit of background as to how important this program really is and what it'll do for the community in the future. The magnitude of the problem really is massive. Heart disease is still the #1 killer in the United States at this point. And in terms of the types of the reasons that people die from heart disease, it really comes in two varieties. The first of which is a heart attack or myocardial infarction. And we are really experts here at Anne Arundel Medical Center in treating heart attacks, myocardial infarctions, and taking people to the cardiac catheterization laboratory, getting blocked vessels open, doing that in a timely manner. When someone has a heart attack, they really have about 90 minutes before there's permanent damage and before they can succumb to that or may die from it. And so the goal here really is to get these patients to our cardiac catheterization laboratory where our team is available 24/7 and open these vessels up and try and save these individuals. And you'll hear a little bit about that later on when you hear it from one of our patients. We are probably the best in the state of Maryland at this point in terms of our door-to-balloon times. Our door-to-balloon times are that we can usually get these vessels open and these patients within 90 minutes, about 90% of the time, which is incredible. And we usually can get them, in most cases, even within 60 minutes, we can have these patients viable and have their vessels open and save their hearts at this point. But that's the plumbing end of it. So essentially, you have about that much time to get these vessels open. What PulsePoint really deals with is the electrical end of it, which is a whole different ballgame. This is what we call sudden cardiac arrest in the field. And when someone has an arrhythmia, which is an abnormal heart rhythm, there's very little time to restore that circulation before there's permanent damage to that patient's heart, to that patient's brain, or that patient dies from that. It's really within the 8 to 10 minute range. And it's amazing because despite the fact that about half the population of the United States has had some kind of CPR training, only about a third of the time do we really have bystander CPR, where someone actually comes and helps this individual and starts CPR on them within the allotted time. And it's important because bystander CPR really does save lives, and there's been studies done, and if you look at it, it increases the survival rate of these patients by about 3-fold overall. So having had someone there as a bystander able to do that, either starting CPR or especially the incorporation of these AEDs, these automatic defibrillators, makes a huge difference in the survival of these patients. So it's important, as our county executive basically just described, that you are able to do this within a very brief period of time. It's the time from the collapse to the time that the treatment is actually started. And this is where PulsePoint really comes in. It's an amazing program. It's actually currently being used in about 35 states. There are about 1 million people that are signed up as users of this. These are CPR-trained people that will be alerted if someone goes down in the field to initiate CPR. And it really is a life-saving program at this point in time. We're really very anxious to do it. And the way that it works, and you'll see a little bit more about it later, is that once you've signed up for the program, it's an app on your phone. And essentially, if someone has downtime, if they go down and they require CPR, it's activated by EMS or the fire department. It alerts people within a certain radius that are trained in CPR to present themselves, and it shows you the location of the patient. It's actually mapped out on the telephone. And it also shows you the location of the AED, so you can grab one on the way if you need to go to resuscitate this patient. So it really makes a huge difference, and it really has been shown in a number of studies, and there's a number of studies in Europe specifically that show that it does increase survival, and it may actually increase survival by as much as 40%, and so forth. So we're very anxious to get this program started. I really appreciate all the efforts of everyone over the last couple of years to do that. And I think it's going to really make a huge difference in terms of overall survival in our community and help our patients here at Anne Arundel Medical Center. I might as well bring up one other topic since we're talking about life-saving procedures, is that I've had a lot of questions about cardiac surgery here at Anne Arundel Medical Center. As most of you know, we were approved for cardiac surgery by a unanimous decision of the Maryland Healthcare Commission over a year ago. And we are anxious to get this program started at Johns Hopkins. We're very committed to getting this program started. There's been a delay in the program because there's been some court action that has basically held us up at this point in time, and we're currently waiting for a decision. But I just wanted to assure everyone that we're totally committed and we're going to persevere. We'll get this program started here too. And I thank you for your attention, and I'd like to introduce, I guess, our fire chief is next, Alan Graves.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to be here this morning to participate in the announcement of this new program that promises to save lives of people experiencing a sudden cardiac arrest in Anne Arundel County. I think it's notable that we are holding this event during the 44th annual National EMS Week. The theme for this EMS Week is Stronger Together. The launch of this PulsePoint program is a demonstration of how we are stronger together. And I would like to thank Leadership Anne Arundel Medical Center, and our partners at Annapolis City Fire Department for their efforts to bring us to this day. I'd also like to thank County Executive Steve Shue. In January, under his leadership, we were able to upgrade our computer-aided dispatch, which was kind of the hinge-pin of getting this program started. We were able to upgrade it, which was the final step in making PulsePoint a reality today. In 2017, there were 534 people in Anne Arundel County who experienced a sudden cardiac arrest. 34% of the time, bystanders performed CPR prior to the arrival of the first responders. Studies have shown, and it was mentioned before, that when bystanders perform CPR, the chance of a patient surviving and ultimately being discharged from the hospital is considerably greater. The PulsePoint program increases the chance that a CPR-trained bystander who may be closer than a first responder can take action to help save a life. So it's not only the technology of the PulsePoint, but also making sure that we have people that are CPR trained, AED trained, and also access to AEDs. So before you leave today, if you could, we have two of our firefighters in blue, firefighter paramedics, and they can talk to you about a program about we have public training for CPR and AED and the other services that we offer. So please stop by and see them. So a living example of us being stronger together happened earlier this year. Allow me to introduce you to Carl Schmidt. On January 27th, he was participating in a local regatta with the Severn Sailing Association when he suffered a sudden cardiac arrest. Thanks to the quick, heroic actions of his fellow participants that day, the work of the firefighters and paramedics who continued his treatment to the hospital, and the cardiac care he received here at Anne Arundel Medical Center, Carl is here with us today to share his story. So without further ado, let me introduce Carl.
Thank you, Chief Graves. I'm lucky. My sister was joking with me giving this speech today because I actually don't remember the day of the event, the day before the event, the preceding 2 days. But I was out sailing in Annapolis end of January, and I said to the woman I was sailing with, I'm just going to sit down and shut my eyes for a minute. And she looked back, and I wasn't breathing and wasn't responding, and they managed to pull me alongside the motorboat and get me on board that boat, get me to shore, and a good friend actually conducted CPR until the EMTs arrived. I think, in my incident, there was a defibrillator on site, but they did not have shears, so they couldn't have cut away my wetsuit. None of the people there were really trained in how to use it. So I think more awareness and training. I'll tell you right now, both yacht clubs have done a refresher courses on all of that, and they had to open up extra sessions in order to get more people in. So I think an incident like mine hopefully is going to save some lives as well in terms of awareness. But luckily the EMTs were fantastic, and I did have people on site conducting CPR. They managed to get me to shore, and I was defibrillated 6 times in the ambulance and twice in the ER. Thank you to Dr. Iliff, who was my emergency room doctor, and then Dr. Killicow and Dr. Reineck, who were my cardiologists, and really the Anne Arundel Medical Center. They did a fantastic job, both in my immediate days, but also the following. I've been through 3 months of cardiac rehab here. I just graduated a couple weeks ago, and I've sailed my first and second regatta since then. So things are going well. But I think hearing about a program like this with PulsePoint, it's reaffirming, because I had no idea that I was even in contention. I had no symptoms leading up to day of. I apparently complained about chest pains, and I had vomited before I went back out sailing. But I thought it was because I was wearing a dry suit and I was overheated and my kids had been sick, and I had every excuse under the sun how it couldn't be any sort of cardiac arrest. But the idea of having first responders, I was fortunate there were enough people there and that people knew how to do CPR, but I think for sure I may not have made it if they hadn't been trained. So. Thank you, and obviously, I think PulsePoint is going to make a huge difference here to the Annapolis area, and hopefully save some lives. So, thank you.